The victim husband, who cried his heart out at the police station and constantly demanded to know his wife's whereabouts, had cheesy love messages for his mistress saved on his phone. Meanwhile, the wife he accused of cheating and eloping never learned that she was the one who had been betrayed, until the day she was strangled, stuffed into an iron furnace, and burned to ashes and dumped into the river. An extramarital affair, two versions of cheating, who was lying to whom? Samir Jadhav and Anjali married in 2017, their life seemingly peaceful and happy. Anjali, 38, was a teacher at a local private school. Samir, 34, had a diploma in automotive engineering and owned a car repair shop. They had 2 children, in 3rd and 5th grade respectively, and the family of 4 lived in the Swami Sinkol apartment in the Siwan district of Pune. To outsiders, they appeared to be a stable, ordinary family. But this stability shattered before the incident, stemming from Samir's infidelity. He had an affair with a stranger and gradually lost patience with his family and Anjali. Initially, Samir would only occasionally come home late, but his attitude towards Anjali became cold and impatient, and arguments at home increased. Anjali noticed her husband's abnormality and tried to communicate with Samir to save the marriage, but Samir either gave evasive answers or flew into a rage, blaming Anjali for everything. As his extramarital affair worsened, Samir's heart completely strayed from his family. His relationship with his lover grew increasingly intimate, and he even began planning their future. In his eyes, Anjali and their 2 children became obstacles. He wanted to be with his lover openly, free from the constraints of marriage, and felt that Anjali's existence was the biggest obstacle. Thus, he conceived the idea of murdering Anjali, hoping to remove this obstacle and pursue his so-called new life. To make his crime seem plausible and to smear Anjali beforehand, Samir began secretly plotting. He secretly took a friend's phone and sent Anjali ambiguous text messages, fabricating the illusion that Anjali was having an affair. He also intentionally or unintentionally mentioned these things to neighbors and family members, implying that Anjali's behavior was immoral, hoping to ruin her reputation in advance. At the same time, Samir repeatedly watched the Indian film Sheep Without a Shepherd. The scenes in the film where the protagonist disposed of a body and covered up his crime inspired him to imitate them. He meticulously studied the details of the film, memorizing methods for concealing crimes, fabricating crime scenes, and misleading investigations. He was determined to apply the film's plot to reality to cover up his murder. At this time, Anjali was completely unaware of all this. She continued to go to get off work on time every day, diligently caring for her 2 children and managing all the household affairs. Even though Samir was indifferent to her, she still clung to a sliver of hope, believing that their marriage could still be salvaged. She was unaware that her husband had already seen her as prey, and a conspiracy to kill her was quietly being prepared. Samir, harboring the intention to kill and referencing films, began methodically preparing for the crime. He knew that to avoid detection, he had to be perfectly prepared, leaving no room for error. First was choosing a location. He knew his home was too large, and his 2 children would occasionally come home unexpectedly, making it unsuitable for a crime. He needed a secluded place where no one would disturb him. After searching, he secretly rented a warehouse in Gobalwadi Thata, Sindhawadi. The warehouse was in a remote location, far from residential areas, with few people, which met his requirements. He rented it for 18,000 rupees per month, paying the rent upfront, leaving no suspicious records, and telling others that he rented the warehouse to expand his business and store car parts. After renting the warehouse, Samir began preparing his tools. He knew that ordinary methods of concealing a body wouldn't completely destroy the evidence. He had to make the body disappear completely, like in the movies. Utilizing his knowledge of mechanics and metalworking, he commissioned a huge iron furnace, large enough to hold an adult, made of sturdy, heat-resistant material, specifically for burning corpses. He also bought a large amount of firewood and gasoline, piling them in the warehouse to ensure sufficient heat to burn the body completely. With everything prepared, Samir waited for the perfect moment. He knew he couldn't have any witnesses during the crime, nor could he be distracted by the children. During the Diwali holiday in October 2025, Anjali's family took the 2 children back to their hometown, leaving only Samir and Anjali at home. He felt this was the perfect opportunity. With the children away, even if Anjali disappeared, no one would suspect anything for a while, giving him ample time to handle the aftermath. Afterward, he changed his usual cold demeanor, actively engaging Anjali in conversation and even offering to take her out for a walk. On October 26, Samir told Anjali that he had recently rented a warehouse and wanted to take her to see it and have a look around. Anjali didn't suspect anything, agreed, and went out with him, unaware that this was the final journey of her life. On October 26, 2025, Samir drove Anjali to Marriott near Keed Shivapur, pretending to take her on a trip. They stayed there for a while, chatting and eating. Anjali, completely unsuspecting, thought their relationship was improving. After the trip, Samir deliberately changed the route, heading towards his rented warehouse. Upon arriving at the warehouse, Samir led Anjali inside. The warehouse was empty, with only firewood and the iron furnace piled in a corner. Anjali asked Samir why there were no car parts in the warehouse. Samir casually replied that they hadn't been moved yet and told her to rest and eat something. Anjali, unsuspecting, found a place to sit, and Samir took out food he had prepared beforehand. They ate together. While Anjali was focused on eating and unsuspecting, Samir suddenly approached her from behind, reached out, and tightly gripped her neck with both hands. Anjali was stunned by the sudden attack. She struggled desperately, kicking and flailing her arms and legs, trying to break free of Samir's grip, and even managed weak cries for help. But Samir was very strong, his hands tightly wrapped around her neck, showing no sign of letting go. After struggling for several minutes, Anjali's resistance weakened, her body slowly went limp, and her breathing stopped completely. After confirming that Anjali was dead, Samir showed no panic. Following the script from the movies, he began to dispose of the body. He dragged Anjali's remains to the iron furnace, laboriously placed the body inside, stuffed in the pre-piled firewood, poured gasoline on it, and lit it. Samir stood by and watched the flames burn until he was sure the body was completely burned, leaving only a pile of ashes. Afterward, he used tools to collect the ashes, put them in a bag, drove to a nearby river, and poured them all into the river. After the burning was finished, he carefully cleaned the iron furnace, scraping away the remaining ash and traces from the inner walls. He also swept the warehouse floor and corners, erasing all traces of his and Anjali's presence. Having done this, Samir changed into clean clothes and left the warehouse as if nothing had happened. He felt he had perfectly imitated the methods in the movies. The body had been destroyed, no traces were left at the scene, no one would know Anjali's whereabouts, and no one would suspect him. After murdering Anjali and disposing of her body, Samir began preparing to cover up his crime. He knew that his wife's disappearance would eventually be discovered by her family and the police, and to escape punishment, he needed to fabricate a reason for Anjali's disappearance. His first step was to create the illusion that Anjali had eloped after an extramarital affair. He took Anjali's phone, unlocked it with her fingerprint, found the contact information of one of her male friends, and sent a flirtatious text message, "I love you, I want to be with you." After sending it, he used his own phone, impersonating that male friend, to reply with the same flirtatious message, creating the impression that the two had been having an affair for some time. Samir planned to make everyone believe that Anjali had eloped with her lover because of her infidelity and guilt towards her family. This would both explain Anjali's disappearance and damage her reputation, transforming himself from a suspect into a victim of his wife's betrayal. Having done all this, Samir waited for the right moment. On October 28, Anjali had been missing for 2 days, and her child was about to return from their hometown. Samir felt it was time to report her missing. He first feigned great anxiety, contacting Anjali's family and saying that Anjali hadn't returned since leaving home on the 26th, and that she couldn't be reached by phone and her whereabouts were unknown. Then, he proactively went to the Varjmal Wadi police station to report his wife Anjali missing, stating that she had disappeared near the Gagarwadi Tower. When reporting the case, Samir pretended to be grief-stricken and anxious, crying to the police and saying that he and his wife had a very good relationship and that he was worried about her safety. He even specifically mentioned Anjali's recent unusual behavior, implying that she might be having an affair, guiding the police investigation towards the possibility of them eloping. After reporting the case, Samir went to the police station even more frequently, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, appearing unusually proactive. He would either inquire about the progress of the investigation, asking if they had found any clues about his wife or caught the person who took her, or he would proactively provide so-called clues, saying he suspected his wife was in contact with someone and asked the police to investigate, or he would sigh and lament in the police station, showing his worry for his wife. He thought this performance would make the police think he was innocent and genuinely worried about his wife, but unexpectedly, his over-the-top acting aroused the police's suspicion. The police in charge of the case found Samir's behavior highly unusual. Generally, when a family member goes missing, relatives are anxious, but not like Samir, who frequently went to the police station to question them and even proactively suggested directions for the investigation. Furthermore, Samir claimed he and his wife had a good relationship, but neighbors reported that the couple had been arguing frequently recently. Samir accused his wife of having an affair, but provided no evidence. It was all his own claim. Police investigations revealed that Anjali showed no abnormalities before her disappearance, no intimate contact with a strange man, no packing of belongings, and no signs of eloping. Instead, Samir's movements were suspicious. On October 26, his driving route passed by the secluded warehouse, and he lingered near it for a considerable time. The police then focused their investigation on Samir, answering his questions while secretly gathering evidence. They reviewed surveillance footage from the warehouse area and roads, discovering that on October 26, Samir did indeed drive Anjali towards the warehouse, and then left alone. After analyzing Anjali's phone, the technical department found that the sending time and operation traces of the ambiguous text message were problematic. It did not seem to have been sent by Anjali herself, but rather appeared to have been deliberately forged. As suspicions grew, the police determined Samir was a prime suspect and decided to formally interrogate him. In early November 2025, the police summoned Samir to the police station for a surprise interrogation. Initially, Samir continued to act, insisting that his wife had eloped and disappeared, that he knew nothing, and feigning distress and anxiety, shouting at the police to find the person who took his wife. However, the police had already gathered sufficient clues. Faced with Samir's denials, the police presented evidence one by one: surveillance footage of him taking Anjali to the warehouse, records of his warehouse rental, clues about the custom-made iron furnace, traces of forged text messages on Anjali's phone, and neighbor testimonies confirming frequent arguments between the two. Seeing this evidence, Samir's psychological defenses began to crumble. His face grew paler, his speech became incoherent, his previous composure and grief vanished, and his eyes darted away, avoiding eye contact with the police. The police seized the opportunity, intensifying the interrogation and gradually breaking down his psychological defenses. Faced with persistent interrogation and irrefutable evidence, Samir could no longer maintain his facade. His mental state completely collapsed, and he finally confessed to all his crimes: murdering Anjali, burning the body to cover up the crime, and staging the elopement. According to Samir's confession, he had watched the film Sheep Without a Shepherd at least 3 or 4 times before committing the crime. He found the methods used by the protagonist to cover up his crime feasible and imitated them step by step: renting a warehouse, building a furnace, killing the victim, burning the body, scattering the ashes, and even fabricating evidence and staging a police report afterward, all planned according to the movie's plot. He admitted that the fundamental reason he killed Anjali was his extramarital affair, and that Anjali was preventing him from being with his lover, so he wanted to kill her. As for smearing Anjali about having an extramarital affair, he said it was only to cover up his crime and mislead the police investigation. He also said that he deliberately chose the time when his 2 children were at their hometown to avoid them witnessing the crime. When burning the body, he felt no remorse, only thinking about destroying evidence, and his frequent visits to the police station were to gain the police's trust, but unexpectedly, they exposed him instead. Samir's confession revealed the truth of the case. It wasn't a missing person case or an elopement farce, but a murder case triggered by an extramarital affair and imitating a movie plot. Based on his confession, the police located the warehouse. Although the body and ashes were nowhere to be found, the remaining traces of burning in the warehouse and the physical evidence on the iron furnace corroborated his account. Many in Pune were shocked by Samir's arrest. No one expected an ordinary auto mechanic to murder his wife, cover up the crime, and feign innocence. Anjali's family was devastated upon learning the truth, unable to accept that Anjali had been murdered without leaving a body, and unable to accept Samir's attempt to smear Anjali to escape punishment. They went to the police station demanding severe punishment for Samir. The two children, unaware of their mother's death, were still waiting for her to come home. They had lost their mother, their father was a murderer, and their future would be affected by this. In November 2025, police indicted Samir, charging him with murder and destruction of evidence. In court, Samir stopped acting, lowering his head and remaining silent, unable to defend himself. He imitated a crime from a movie, but could not escape legal punishment. He faced long imprisonment, or even the death penalty. This case was not a bizarre imitation, it was a tragedy caused by infidelity, greed, and selfishness. Samir destroyed his family, harmed his wife, and ruined himself and his children for his own desires. This concludes the entire process of this case. If you'd like to learn about other crimes of passion, please follow us. We will continue to bring you new content.